It's Wednesday. I am Ted Bogert with the TED Show. I am here with our every other weekish kind of series, Leadership Corner. I absolutely love this. I love the amazing Marion Weiler is here with us with Weiler International. Welcome.
Thank you, Ted. So excited to be here.
Well, there you are. Very excited to have you. You came up with this amazing idea for Leadership Corner. I loved it. I think the words of wisdom that you impart on people are awesome. And so I'm especially excited about today's topic, mental hygiene, and what does that have to do with anything, pretty much. But it's so important, and it's especially important now since we've all had our mental hygiene in check during COVID and the quarantine. So welcome to the show. Tell them a little bit about you, and then let's take a deep dive into mental hygiene.
I am really excited about this topic too. And, you know, the Leadership Corner overall, I feel, has really increased importance.
Like we've got it. There you go.
Can you hear me okay? Does it work? Can you hear me? Ted? Ted?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So
your picture is off, but I can hear you.
Okay, all right. So I picked this topic this week because I feel that the mindset is so critical for anything that we are trying to accomplish. So I'm
Hold
really
on, Mary. Internet connection must have been a challenge right now.
Hang on. Is this better? I'm disconnecting my phone. Can you hear me?
There. Keep talking. I can see you blink.
So I disconnected my phone. Perfect. I guess that's the beauty of being live, right? You realize, that you just kind of have to play with things here. So
that's right. So thank you, Tony, for that. Tony, you're fine. We're good now.
All right. So keep it real here. But I picked this topic this week because I feel that leadership and mindset is so critical, particularly right now, but in general, that, when you kind of work on your inner peace, you can deal with whatever's coming your way in such a better way. And really chaos, crisis, or whatnot. At the end of the day, it's what really happens within you that kind of determines how you're dealing with the situation and how you go about the goals and the things that you're trying to accomplish. And that's something certainly that I found true for myself. When I have the right mindset, then it's much more productive for me to overcome whatever I'm dealing with. And so I wanted to throw this topic out there because I feel that it's critically important for me. And I'm hoping that there will be a couple bits and pieces for others to kind of take out of this and help them get through whatever challenging situation that they're faced with right now, because everybody's dealing with something else. But for me, what I've realized really now more than ever again is what you focus on turns into a feeling, and that feeling turns into action, and the action gets into a result. So if you have a positive, or the same is true for negative, right? If you have a negative focus, if you focus on the things that really, like the news and whatever is going on that creates fear and anxiety, then your feeling will be negative. Your action will be out of fear or out of anxiety, and the result that you're creating is likely not going to be what you're hoping to get. So, and perhaps to kind of demonstrate that, I was thinking I'll share a quick story or a scene really out of my life where that was particularly true. And that was when a few years ago when we relocated as a family from overseas, and I was offered this role that I always dreamed about, this executive role with this leading global firm. But what it meant was I had to move from Germany, where our friends were, my family was, and we moved to New York, and it all seemed like this is the right thing to do, and I was all excited. But when we came here, we didn't really think about the impact it would have on everybody, on the children, the school, the lack of friends, the starting over, and, flying in on a Friday, coming and getting a car on a Saturday. And then on Monday, I started this role. And so did my husband start a new role. And what I didn't think about at that time was how challenging it really was for the children, how much of an impact that had. So before we knew it, we found ourselves in a situation where one of our children refused to speak, in fact, for 9 months. So we were working with the school, and the other one had somewhat of anxiety attacks because of all of this change. And so what happened, and the point I'm trying to get across here is, what happened is it's very easy to get overwhelmed. It's very easy to let the negative thoughts and whatever, what's going on in our mind to say, why did we make this decision, right? Regretting this decision, or saying, well, is it really all about me? Because for me, it was a dream, right? But for my children, it necessarily wasn't a dream. Their dream was to stay with their friends, stay with their family. And so being swept away by this, the negativity and the overwhelm of, oh my goodness, how am I going to solve this, right? And that's really where I realized it doesn't help you moving in the right direction if you focus on that, right? So you have to figure out a way how you can get your mindset back in a place where you can deal with all of this stuff. And meanwhile, we both had these new roles and internal challenges and external challenges, and just the mere fact of moving a family overseas with nothing for 6 weeks, sleeping on air mattresses, it can get very overwhelming at that moment. You start doubting yourself. And that's, when I come back, and this is how I've handled pretty much any challenging situation, is my focus. That's where I go back to. And when I say my focus, it's, what I focus on expands, right? If I focus on the positive, then positive things kind of get into my thinking, and I start feeling better. I start, feeling less of that fear and anxiety. And of course, the same is true if you are starting to kind of talk, the back talk that's happening in your head, right?
All the voices.
The voices, right? The left, the right, the behind, the back, everywhere. And then, now in this situation where you have the news almost rolling over all of us, right? You have to be very careful what you consume and what you let in, because even if you don't realize it at that very moment, it's your subconscious is really not in a place where it can reject anything, right? Whatever you bring is something that is saved, perhaps subconsciously, right? You're not even aware of it, but it comes back in other places of not sleeping well, of overreacting on a situation that perhaps wouldn't rock your world, but now it does, right? And it usually is not because of that very one thing that happened, but because it's an accumulation. It's a thought over a thought over a thought. So bringing it back to that focus, I am almost religious about what I focus on, because I truly believe that whatever I focus on will expand. And so the 3 questions that I ask myself, and that I believe really shapes pretty much anything in my life, and perhaps in yours to some extent as well, but it's consciously, it's unconsciously, and it really determines my destiny and people around me that I've experienced. And those questions are that the first one is what I have versus what I am missing.
Okay.
So what it's that idea of gratitude. It's that idea of bringing it back into your conscious mind of, okay, let's take a look here. We're always very quick in looking at what we lost, right? We might not be able to go out. We might not have a job. We might not know uncertainty fueling in, right? And we might have lost certain things that we cling on to, because we all as humans have this resistance to some degree of change. And we talked about that in the very first show, right? We kind of want to go back into this box, right? We hear the conversations go, when are we going to be back to normal? When is this over? And I'm not so sure there will be a normal. I'm not so sure, in fact, I personally don't believe there will be the same as it was before. I think there will be a new normal. There will be a new way, but it's very human to kind of wanting to go back to where we were, right? Let's get back into that box. But really, is that box where we want to be? Or is
people are asking me, they're messaging me, they're asking, are these 3 questions part of your definition of mental hygiene?
Yes.
Okay, got you.
Yes, it is, because mental hygiene really, for me, Billy, is the mindset I'm putting myself in, and how I take care of my mind, right? And how I think shapes how I take care of my mind. So that first question, how can you be fully empowered if you're focused on the things that are missing? Correct. Goes back to the why you focus on expands. So really going into and saying, okay, let's take a look at this. What do I still have? And chances are, when you start making a list, there's still a lot of things that you have, right? That we all have, that we take for granted, that perhaps we haven't really thought about in a while. Perhaps we haven't even really enjoyed it. And part of that might be some relationships, right? Those of us that have, live with anybody or children or whatnot, it's a whole new experience. Right. We probably know each other better than we ever thought we would.
It's so true.
And it could be good and it could be not so good, right? Depending on where you are. But the second question that I look at is, what can I control versus what can I not control? And that's where the news comes back in. That's where, the media is. That's where situations are happening that are conditions. Let's call them conditions that we can't change. Nobody was asking for this. Nobody is asking when they're losing their job. Nobody, is asking for health issues. Nobody is asking for that. You can't control that. You can only try and shape what the decisions that you make, right? Now it is here. And so what are we doing with it? Are we sitting back? Are we waiting for the new normal, the old normal, the box to appear again? Are we kind of tied in fear and anxiety, or are we really looking outside the box? Are we talking to people that perhaps sometimes through brainstorming new ideas come up, or maybe this person can help with X and I can help the same person with Y, right? Like one helping another, community, collaboration, those types of things. So
why do you think, Marion, why do you think it's so hard for people to not focus on what they can't control? Because it seems like we spend the majority of our time doing exactly that, focusing on the things that we cannot control, that are out of our control. Yeah. Why do we do that? Why are we conditioned to do that? And then what do we begin to do to start unconditioning ourselves from that kind of behavior?
In my opinion, it's almost a default setting. We live in a world where the news and the headlines, and one has to top another. Right? It's like the crazier, the better, the more, eye-opening and catchy, and even at the expense of being negative, it's almost perceived as, oh my goodness, there's another headline, right? We are living in a world like that. And you even see that in conversation when talking to people. And it's not it's not their fault, right? And it's not even oftentimes their intention, but the conversation goes very quickly of like, oh my goodness, how are you dealing with this? And did you see that? Oh, that was on the news, and I can't believe this happened. I can't believe this. And now with social media, I can't believe this person did this, right? So it's like we are all very quick in judging people. We're very quick in catching on to these news, and it really takes much more effort to say, wait a minute, to first of all realize this is happening. Right. And then saying, how would that change a conversation if as we are talking, Ted, for example, if we are like shifting completely into the positive, right? How would people perceive that? How would that be an eye-opening moment to say, oh, I thought, that the thing that is on everybody's mind is X, Y, and Z, right?
Right.
How can that person not talk about that when that is what's all over? Right? It's consuming us almost. And I think that's a big part of it. And making that conscious decision to say, okay, let's listen what comes out of our mouth. And that is true for me too. Sometimes, your words become your reality. And when I catch myself saying something that I feel is not empowering, it's limiting who I am, who I want to be, what I'm trying to accomplish, I take a step back, because now I'm starting to be conscious of that, to say, wait a minute, that the words that come out of my mouth are not empowering me, are not helping me in any way, shape, or form to get me where I need to be, because my condition is going to remain the same until I make certain decisions that move me in a different direction.
So let me ask you, on the mental hygiene side, and I know you've got question 3 too, but people want to know why you used that word hygiene, because your mental health,
yes,
your mental state of mind, but hygiene is such a fascinating word to put with mental. So they were asking why you put that together and sort of what you meant by hygiene.
So like last week when we talked about financial hygiene, the same is true for your mental state. It's a everyday, every moment kind of thing. Nobody ever said, oh, I showered on Monday, right? I'm not going to shower again. It's a thing that happens frequently. It's a thing that you do ongoingly. And in my experience, and people that I've experienced around me that practice that, one day is you feel like you are on top of the world, you got it all covered, you're positive, and the next day you wake up with fear, anxiety, overwhelm. So it's the hygiene means or the reason why I picked that topic is hygiene means it's something that you have to work on ongoingly. It doesn't go away. It's like it elevates you in a different level of consciousness once you really start paying attention to, but it's something that you do like you so in such a funny way. When we talked about financial hygiene, it's not the deodorant, right? You put on once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, however often people do that. But it's the same with your finances. It's the same with your mental health, with how you think, how you take care, what you let into your head, consciously or subconsciously. Does that explain?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's good for people to look at it as this is an ongoing thing. It's like when you allegedly, because I don't work out, but it's like when you work out, you have to continue to build that muscle. And if you don't continue to work on that muscle, you'll get some version of an atrophied version of that muscle. So you have to keep on it. You have to be in touch with it. Like you said, it's hygiene is something you have to constantly be keeping up with. It doesn't go away. So I love that. I think that's a great way to talk about mental health and mental mindset.
Yeah, it's something that I found certainly for myself true. For a long time, I didn't give it the importance that it has. You know, we are so easy to look at the business, the results, the bottom line, the, you know, how do I make this work? How am I successful? How am I, you know, growing my business, transforming my business, right? All of these things. But what your mindset does to that, how your mental, and we hear a lot now of, you know, with exercising and eating healthy and all of those things. But when you are in a good place mentally, then you're open to really, at least that is true for me. I'm open to receiving these thoughts, right? Really trusting my intuition. And at that point, somehow, things start coming into my life because perhaps I'm open to it. And before I wasn't. I'm not exactly sure because it's not a science. It's more an experience.
Very much so. All right. So I got you. I had questions, so I got you off. I know there's a third question.
Yes, there is a third. And that is, what are you focused on? Past, present, or future? And that is so interesting when you look at different cultures. And I by now, those of you that have been watching me the last few times know that I'm originally from Germany. So looking at a different culture, but even within, you know, one culture, it's some people are very much focused on the past. And I would say Germany is one culture where that is more the case than the U.S. culture. But the past, in my opinion, the past is important to learn from. We all make mistakes. That's, you know, a given. And the learning experience is what's key. So you're not making the same mistakes over and over. But it really doesn't help, again, moving forward, where you want to be if you're living in the past, wishing everything back to where it was, you know, back to my box, like I said earlier. But the present moment is really what we have. And that is not easy. And it's not easy for me sometimes to just be in that moment. I need my watch to remind me, you know, now 1 minute, breathe, right? Sit still, breathe, and just focus in on that one moment, on that breath. And that's where yoga, exercise, all of these things come back into. But focusing on the present and then clearly defining, what do you want your future to look like? And even that thought can create a certain level of anxiety right now when, what is my future looking like, right? We all wish we have a crystal ball that will tell us in a year from now, you know, we've transformed our business and things will be wonderful or, you know, nobody wants to hear any bad news, right? But you have to put in the work and you have to have the vision. So you even know where you want to go, right? And perhaps it's not as, this is exactly what I'm going to do, but this is the end goal I'm trying to achieve. Yes. This is where I want to be, whatever that you know is for anybody specifically. Like for me, it's building a community. It's building almost a community coaching type of model where I can impact more people than on the one-on-one, where we can help each other grow in that aspect and remind, like almost like an accountability partner, because that is something that is so critical. It's easy to come off that path when it's just you.
Right. It's true. It's easy to come off that path when you don't have the accountability. It's also easy to not even start when you don't have the accountability. And I think a lot of people, the starting part is what becomes difficult. It becomes a challenge because they think they have to have it all ready and understand it all and everything's planned out in step one before they even take the first step. Yeah. And that's where a lot of people, I think, mess up.
Yeah, and I believe it's true for all of us to some extent. Sometimes it gets so big in front of us that it gets so overwhelming that we can't do it. We're almost paralyzed. We can't do anything with it. And that goes back into that mental state to say, first of all, be gentle with yourself. Take one step. Right? Who knows what the 10th step is? But if you have somewhat of a vision, what you're trying to do, and then take one step at a time, the chances are that it's going to go like this.
Right.
It's not going like that, where you make the step, you learn new things, and then perhaps you go over here, you go over there, you'll learn different people along the way, but it all starts with that one step. So, and I can't remember what this American saying is with the elephant, you eat it one bite at a time or whatever. It's an American. But
you got it. That's good. That's good.
Is that what it is, or did I make that
up? It's very, yes, you're right around it. It's perfect.
Good. So it is true that one step goes into that same mindset of, I can take the next step. I don't know how I'm going to make this all happen. I don't know how I'm going to go about this community-based coaching membership, that vision I'm having, but I can take the first step. And that's really that I need to do. And in the meantime, that's where hygiene comes back in every day and every moment when I realize I'm slipping away from this. Bring it back. And then I'm slipping away and I'm bringing it back. And that consciousness to even realize that you are in this pattern and then to bring it back, that's what I call hygiene. So a couple of things for me that help me keep a positive mindset or get a positive mindset. One is reading something positive, whether that is quotes, it is a book, something that you can learn, something you can grow. I almost need that like I never needed it before, because I have to put myself into a positive mindset to really envision what I'm trying to do here. And that's where my second step comes in, connecting with like-minded people. There's nothing that gets you off that path as quickly as if you are surrounded by people that perhaps you want to be polite, their friends, their family, but you can feel how the energy gets zipped out of you, right? So finding people, connecting with them, calling them, writing with them, or being part of a mastermind. I've been part of masterminds over the last few weeks because it's a nice way to meet new people. They're all interested in the personal growth, professional growth arena. Interesting, nice people that kind of, I get the feeling that I am moving my growing in the right direction.
Right.
And then, like we said, the exercise, the eating healthy, the tapping into your intuition and kind of understanding this is an opportunity. This detour in a way is an opportunity to really understand, what does Marion want? Right? And what does Ted want? Right? And anybody that is listening. So many of us have just gone with this pace that has been faster and faster, seemingly year over year, more responsibility, more things to do, more things to take care of. And we kind of slip into something that it's almost like a screeching halt of, oh my goodness, maybe this is not what I want to do with my life. What are you doing with the rest of this bus ride, right? Like now you're at this point, what are you doing with the rest of the bus life? Is it what
I think a lot of people are really in that mode. I think most of the people I've spoken with, not even on the show, are definitely in a place where they have reevaluated things and they feel like there's been a reset button. What I want to encourage people to not compare your reset button to anybody else's.
Yes.
And so if you've had a minor change, it's still a change. And so don't beat yourselves up over it, because I think that it's super important just to give yourself the kudos for taking the step and reevaluating. All right, we're out of time. So how do people reach you, Marion, until the next show, until the next great topic. What's the best way for them to reach out?
You can email me at marion@weilerinternational.com, or you can go on my website, which is scrolling on the bottom there, weilerinternational.com, and you can fill out and schedule a 30-minute with me to talk about your specific situation or anything that I can do to help you.
Fantastic. All right. That was awesome. Mental hygiene is important, guys. So reach out to Marion. Marion, thank you so much for imparting that wisdom. It was really, really good. You have lots of love here, so we'll all respond to that, guys. Marion's really good at it. So thank you. Till next time.
Thanks, Ted. I'll see you.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Thank you. Bye, everybody.